A lot of confidence about this and what's going to happen this weekend. How confident do you feel about a Munster victory?
They've a good chance, there's no doubt about it. Again, it's kind of going back to, and I end up saying this a lot, on paper, you put the players down, you think bigger budget, more resources.
Racing are a beast of a team.
Yeah, they've a lot of options throughout their sides. You know, if they get a couple of injuries, they can change things about. It doesn't look that they're too disrupted. Some top players there. And that was the case when they came to when they both played. They played against each other in the pool stages as well. But I thought Munster could have won that game in January in Paris.
The shootout.
Yeah, with the game in the U Arena, the new venue, was their first match there in the Champions Cup. They were brilliant. Few defensive errors, small mistakes. And they could have won that game, and they obviously beat them in Thomond Park in the earlier rounds, but they're a very, very powerful side and physical. So I think taking Racing out of Paris will give a little bit more of hope, bringing them down to Bordeaux. In
terms of the style of play, right, and you've played them so often over the last couple of years, the Kerry football team had this thing about hammering the hammer. So you take the opposition on at their point of strength, and once you crack that, the whole team cracks around it. So do you take Racing on physically and go, because we are a team as opposed to a collection of individuals, we're going to be able to somehow match you? Or do you go, okay, you can have the physical exchanges and we're going to spread you out and run you around and you'll be knackered the last 10 or 15 minutes?
Well, first and foremost, Munster have to take them on physically. Do you pound around the edges and do you maul against them and do you leave the ball in the scrum? No, you don't. You try and play with pace and intensity, and it's not going to be an overcomplicated game plan from Munster. That's not their strength. Their strength is probably their ball retention, their ability to play with, to play. Their kicking game is very important for them as well. Turn Racing and frustrate him a little bit, and hopefully that fitness-wise and intensity-wise, when the pace gets up, that they can, ask questions of their desire and their passion and their commitment to the cause. I think Munster are a very forward-dominated team, and this pack of forwards work incredibly well together, and they've shown that all season. I suppose you look at Scannell and Arnold in the centre, what they did against Nonu and Bastereau in the semi-final, they're probably going to have to do the same again.
Yeah.
Who do Racing pick in the centre? They've so many options there. But Racing are a powerful side throughout, physically very, very strong. But I think Munster will back themselves, and particularly with the 2 weeks they had in South Africa, like a little mini pre-season, if you like. They will have worked a lot. We spoke about it last week on the detail required to beat Racing this week. Yeah,
they're the ones who have come in with the hardest test most recently, and with more of their frontline players playing than any of the other teams. Scarlets rested everybody, Leinster rested a bunch of players. The Racing team, it's hard to know what the first choice Racing team is. If you put a gun to the head of the Racing coaching staff, do they know who their best 15 are?
They have a lot of options, and they can change it about.
Do you like being that battle tested? So last week you had this come from behind victory on the road against a really good side. It seems to me that's better preparation for the group than losing at home to Treviso with your B team. Yeah, I think being away like that within a group, with the group with Munster, and I've said this, the Cheetahs result in the end of the day would not have affected. It would have meant they would have gone on to have to beat Ulster to get that home quarter final in the Pro 14s. But to get those two results, have some fun together as a group, a little bit less pressure, all that stuff helps, because when you get to these big games, desire, passion, togetherness, all that, they help. They make a massive difference at times. But if you go back to the Saracens game last year, when Saracens came to Dublin, there was a lot of optimism, very good Saracens side, and Munster just underperformed on the day. They've got to play well here. 20,000 Munster fans and heart, passion, desire, may not get them the result, because I think Racing, their form has been pretty decent as of late. And they're capable. Yeah. We keep saying this word capable.
French teams, when they move anywhere, you know, that's where the question marks come in. But I think Munster will fancy their chances because they've played them twice this year. They've won one in Thomond Park and probably should have won the one in Paris. So they have a good chance.
In retrospect, that would have knocked them out. It would have been a great move.
Yeah, they have a good chance, and playing them in Bordeaux opens that door a little bit more. But Munster have to build from what they did against Toulon. They got some luck and fortune in that game that we all know about. They've got to play in the right areas. And if they let Racing on the front foot, and it's the same with any of the French sides, if they get you know, big, strong guys continuously running at you. They'll have Chavancy in the centre, Vakatawa, who's very, very abrasive, plays 13 for France. Will he play there? Loads of options. Doolin at full back, Joe Rocathoko.
Dan Carter on the bench.
Yeah, Carter could be on the bench. Lambie could be playing 10.
It was interesting. I don't know if it's a coincidence, and you would suspect
well, they
it
were
isn't.
Better when Carter came on against Clermont.
Exactly. There's like
that quarter final.
Suddenly there's width outside because of some very fluid passing. It's kind of that kind of New Zealand style of I'm not really looking and hanging the balls move 40 metres and our defence suddenly looks soft. It's like, well, oh look, Dan Carter was in the middle of all that.
Yeah. We didn't mention it yet, Donncha Ryan as well. You know how good he's been for him this year, getting him out of that. The one that jumps out for me is not the games against Munster. It's the Leicester away game, getting that result that got him into the knockout stages, and potentially putting them. You know, if they beat Munster in a final, if they don't beat Leicester that day in round 6,
they're out.
They're out. So there was fine margins, and he was outstanding that day. He's been brilliant from. They're in a really good position in a top 14 as well, so very, very powerful side. But I do give Munster a good chance, a really good chance, and I think they can win it, but they've got to not rely on good fortune and luck. They've got to find a really big performance, and that starts up front.
Simon Lewis in the Examiner has the story that he thinks that Zebo is not going to play or not going to start, but be on the bench. Why do you put somebody on the bench if there's an injury doubt? Surely you get them out there and you take them off if that's not going to work. Because if somebody's injured, you put them on and then they have to come off. It's like, oh, well, that's a waste of a sub.
You don't. If there's an injury there, he's not involved. So I don't think it's that speculation. The speculation for me is about where does Keith Earls go when he comes back. So you look at the back three that played against Toulon. It was Conway, Zebo and Alex Wootton.
Yeah.
And they all played.
It was fairly obvious.
Well.
Yeah.
So, you know, where does Keith Earls has to come back into the side if he's available?
He's definitely going to start in the wing. And they like Conway as a full back, but are we saying Wootton's now ahead of Zebo?
Wootton is a very, very good player and has played particularly well. He's very, very dangerous. For me, though, it would be a very brave decision not to play Simon Zebo and to go with Alex Wootton over Zebo and, you know, move Conway to full back. I think it'd be a very brave call from Munster, particularly in such a big game. But you never know. You don't know what's going on in training. Guys showing form, hunger, training really well, all that kind of stuff. So Munster don't often have this scenario where, you know, they have a number of players vying for positions like that because of the injury profile with Taute and Farrell being out. Earls has been out for a number of weeks. But I think it'd be a brave call to take Zebo out, put Conway to full back and put Earls and Wootton as your wingers.
Yeah. Unlikely, but I mean, obviously they're putting the story out for some reason.
Yeah,
it's getting out there
there's
for
a bit of speculation about it, and it's a decision that has to be made. So for me, I would pick Earls, Conway, Zebo full back.
It's nothing to do with the fact that he's signing for them next season. It's no kind of like.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think it's probably, you know, down to who are the best players on the day. And who the form players, and Wootton, to be fair, has been very good for Munster. All
right, just a reminder, we do have a pair of tickets to give away to one lucky viewer of Off the Wall AM to the Leinster game against Scarlets in the Champions Cup semi-final this weekend. It will be a sellout by the time kickoff rolls around. So just share the stream, leave a comment, or let us know if you want to just leave a comment on wherever it is you're watching, either on YouTube, Facebook or Twitter. And yeah, there are still some tickets available for that game between Leinster and Scarlets, and we'll have it live on the radio on Saturday afternoon as well. I'm trying to play this from Brian O'Driscoll, where he clearly thinks Munster are going to win this game.
I always liked their chances.
Did you, yeah?
I always did. I think they're a vastly improved team on last year. They managed to get to a semi-final probably when they shouldn't, playing on raw emotion. I think they've added a huge amount of... The personnel haven't changed massively, but I think tactically they've gotten an awful lot better. I think they've got Keatley playing really well. I think Conor Murray playing the best rugby of his life. A pack that's a very clear idea as to what they need to do with the source of ball they're getting from scrum and line out. And they don't know when they're beaten. They go 14-0 down to the Cheetahs. I saw it on social media. I saw 2 early tries within half an hour. I thought lots of teams have struggled down there, and I couldn't believe watching that they'd managed to sneak it with that Conor Murray 55-metre penalty or whatever it was.
They went down early to the Southern Kings. They went down early to Racing.
But that never fazed them. They're one team that absolutely don't get fazed by that. If they concede early, they know they have firepower and that they can score themselves, and they'll create opportunities. It's just a matter of taking advantage of that. And that's why I think it becomes a mental battle at semi-final level and final level. And it would be so interesting to see the 2 Irish provinces in the final from a tactical perspective, because there would be such huge nervousness knowing each other so well. And that's why I hope it does happen, because I'd be really interested to see tactically who was able to come out on top. We've a while to go before any of that happens, but yeah. I like Munster down there. They won't be afraid of Racing. They've played them 4 times over the last 3 years, or even the last 2 years. They have the back-to-back
seasons.
3-1 in that.
Right, you made a good point there. In the dream scenario where Leinster and Munster are in a Champions Cup final, I mean, it's unlikely to happen. We can't get our hopes up. Please let it happen. What would happen?
It could also happen that they're playing the week before in the Pro 14 semi-final, because...
That'll be in Dublin, would it?
Would, because Leinster at home, well, they're going to be at home in the semi-final. As it stands, Munster will be playing either Edinburgh or Ulster in that quarter-final scenario. And you'd expect Munster to win the home quarter-final in the Pro 14. That would mean then they play Leinster in Dublin in the semi-final.
The week before a Champions Cup final.
Yeah, so you could have them.
What a brilliant week that would be.
On the trot. And then for either or side, you can imagine how big the 3 weeks would be. They'd be playing in a final of a Pro 14 the week after.
Potentially having lost the Champions Cup final the week before.
Champions Cup
or won.
Or won that one, and you never know. But it could be a crazy couple of weeks for one of the sides. But I think if Munster and Leinster were playing, in that scenario, 2 weeks on the trot, it'd be incredible. It'd be everyone would love that. But you'd start speculating then what kind of teams they'd play in that Pro 14 semi-final.
You'd have to go for it, wouldn't you? To try and...
You'd have to just go for the 2 weeks, yeah.
If you win that first game well, then there's a chance to crush the opposition.
If you win the first team well, you're going to lose the second one.
Do you think so?
You're going to get that crazy reaction of the people who lost. But look, Leinster have more, balance to them at their side at the moment. But like Drico says, in fairness, this Munster group have shown a lot of resilience. Incredible to be in a semi-final again with the resources, the injuries, everything that's gone on with the change of coach and everything. It's remarkable.
I think the point too about them being a better team this year, it feels like they've a more, more settled. But Conor Murray has been fit for the whole season in a way that he wasn't for last year. That he had that neck injury and he was just coming back into the team, and he's playing at an elite level over a sustained period of time, which means we're guaranteed he will play at that level this weekend, irrespective of how badly the team around him are playing. But also Peter O'Mahony is now back to the full extent of who Peter O'Mahony is, and has done that now for the whole season as well. I'd have a concern. Is Jack O'Donoghue someone in a boot in a photograph yesterday? Is he?
And he was really good. Precautionary, I hope. He was really good against Toulon. A very, very, very talented young player. And they've been decimated with O'Donnell and Cloete, 2 natural 7s. I think Conor Oliver has come back, which has given him a boost, a little bit of comfort there. But Jack O'Donoghue was really good against Toulon, stepped up to the plate and showed that, even though there's other guys who jumped ahead of him in the pecking order with Ireland, that he's still a very, very good player, and he performed really well. So I think he's really vital to him on Sunday.
Yeah.
You think of Nyanga, Leroux, Wenceslas-Laure,
Yeah.
French internationals. They have a very powerful and good back row.
And the two lads in the second row are massive.
Yeah, and Donncha Ryan, a lot of good ball carriers, and they like to carry a lot. Nyanga, Laure, they make lots of carries, and so I think the back row situation, and you think O'Mahony and Stander, you know, their form has been really good, and coming back the week after the Six Nations, they went straight back in with Munster and performed, so they'll need him on Sunday. I like Dricko's optimism. I'm not as optimistic, but that's me being nervous and still being attached a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm nervous about it, but look, I think they have a great chance, and I just really hope they don't underperform like they did in that Sarries game last year. No, Sarries stopped them from playing and kind of tactically really frustrated them and held on to the ball so well. But they need to play well, and they have a great chance if they're in the mix, particularly with 65 minutes in the game. If they're in the mix, they love those last 10-15 minutes, and they keep going and keep going and keep going.
I want to talk about the semi-finals, the comment that Brian had in the middle of that, but a load of comments rolling through, so we'll get through some of these now. I love the massive pro-Munster thing on the station, but this team is still in transition. It's not the team of old yet, long way to go. Nobody is scared of them, says Neil Keegan. Toulon didn't play well, and it was magic, but not a plan that won it for them. A lot of luck in the game, which won't happen every time.
Everything he said, we've said that it's, you know, they're not the finished article, and on paper they won't win the European Cup or the Pro 14. But, you know, you wouldn't like to play against them. I understand his point about the fear factor. You know, they don't have the same fear factor maybe, and time's gone by. But certainly they could, you know, if they're in your face, they can upset you and frustrate you. We've said all along, Leinster the better side, Leinster the dominant side, and rightly so the favourites. And you look at that game against Scarlets, it's a tricky fixture for them, but I think based on what happened last year, maybe in that semi-final, that they'll be very, very much aware of the threat of Scarlets. But
like, so Scarlets did that against Leinster in the semis, and Munster must have been looking at that going, these lads are good. 30 minutes in, 30 points down. Like, you can know something's coming.
Yeah,
being able
of
to
course
stop
you
it
can.
is
Yeah, of course you can, and they're a confident side, and they've a lot of big characters in that Scarlet side. A lot of internationals who are playing well. Wales front row, very, very powerful and strong. Tygburn, every time he plays against an Irish province, he seems to
man of the match.
You know, be brilliant as well. And then their back row, Davies and Barkley, phenomenal. The breakdown, and that's a really intriguing part of that Leinster Scarlets game at the weekend. Levy has been outstanding. Will Jack Conan be back in the mix? Will Fardy play in the back row as well? If they allow Barkley and Davies to get near their ball, they can frustrate and upset them.
Yeah, it's hard to know who's going to be fit. It looks like Ruddock won't be fit, and Conan, they were saying, was struggling. So you could have Jordy Murphy.
Jordy Murphy could be the same back row that played against Saracens and played really well against Saracens. And I think you know, Scott Fardy was signed as a second row, but he's certainly a very, very capable back row as well.
A couple more quick comments for you. Will Donncha Ryan have any grudges to settle when the sides meet this weekend? Surely he would be starting for Munster this weekend if he stayed, says Peter Scully. He definitely would be starting for Munster. He's playing brilliantly. And,
I don't think he'll have any grudges to settle. I think he'll want to win and get into... You become selfish like that, and of course, against your old side, it nearly makes you want to win more. You probably have that connection after the game with players. We saw a great picture of himself and Keith Earls embracing after the game in January. But you know, Donncha's...
If there's a head to be kicked at the bottom of the ruck, Donncha will be doing the kicking.
Well, I tell you, if you're up against him in training, like I was so many times when he's frustrated, he's not on the team, and you're going helter-skelter in training, there's no love lost, and there won't be any love lost on Sunday as well. He'd be trying to get a result for his team, as anyone would.
Totally fair enough, yeah. And then Isle Cody, the last one for now, says, surely shows confidence in Munster if they are, as rumoured, not altering the calls with Ryan for backing their execution. A confident Munster are a lethal Munster, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a very good point. When they're confident, they're in a good place, and they just grow in that confidence. It's amazing. Like you just... Sometimes it's hard to figure out how they can kind of be so relentless when they get these periods of 10 minutes where it's just non-stop energy and
everybody
aggression.
plays the best rugby of their lives for that 10 minutes.
They do, and even the ferocity and the clean-outs and all that stuff, when they're confident. Technically, it's not always 100%.
What's Van Graan done? What influences does he have in any of that?
He's a calming influence, and I think he's trying to. He's Rassie's big thing was to give confidence in the players that they were perceived inferior to other top quality players, and work with the group you have, trying to get the best out of them. It's kind of like your Burnley-Chelsea scenario that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to be disrespectful to Munster, but you same scenario. How do you get the best out of a group that maybe people on the outside, and the facts state that they're not all regular internationals. How do you get them to believe? Someone like Ian Keatley, how do you get him to fulfil that natural talent that he has and be good? And Scannell and Arnold, how do you get them to take on someone like Bastro and Nonu? And it's confidence and it's belief and it's putting the arm around them. So I think Van Graan in that transition has done a good job in getting Munster into this position.
Because they obviously lost when
keeping things together, Ger, because obviously
that's it. Well, so
keeping the
when Rassie left, they also lost Nienaber, the defence coach, and so obviously no one's coming in the middle of the year and going, well, that defensive system doesn't work, let's totally change it around. But are there tweaks? Is there anything to it, or is it literally like things are working well here, lads?
He'll try and put his own stamp on it, and any coach naturally, if you don't rock the boat too much, you're trying to instill confidence and get a bit of enthusiasm, and maybe you have the effect that players are trying to impress the new coach and going forward. So he's a very astute guy and very knowledgeable, and we've heard the plaudits before he came here from top class international South Africans.
Because it seemed like the players were pissed off that Rassie had been allowed to go in the way that he was allowed to go, that had dragged on for so long, and they were like, oh, this is all happening again. And then lo and behold, straight away, the team actually kicks on and improves. Which is a big, that's a big testimony to him.
And he's still a young guy, isn't he, Van Graan? And I think to be in that position to kind of take that burden, most coaches come in pre-season, they've 2-3 months to prepare, to see guys doing the fitness, no pressure of matches for a while, you get to know people, you start to crack the whip gradually when you want to. So very, very tough situation to come in mid-season like that and take over the reins, I think. But look, I think Jerry Flannery, Felix Jones would have, he would have probably let them, and that's what happened for the first week or two. He observed. And
even looking at them, the body language between the three of them was great. Like there's no tension, it's just like constant kind of communication and.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and even after a cheated result, you see them hugging and embracing each other. What it meant to them, and there's a good buzz there at the moment. Are they good enough to go and technically beat a very powerful Racing side? We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, looking forward to that now.
So do you want to talk about Leinster now, because that texter there will be given out?
I know we did a whole heap of Leinster earlier this week. Do you think
you should clarify that for him, because he's saying we're talking about Munster too much?
Do you think Leinster are going to win this game? I mean, I would have the same concerns that you have about Munster. It's like the game gets close and you're like, oh, this team, they hockeyed Leinster last year, wasn't it?
Yeah,
close?
They're a very good side, and a lot of good players. Players I think of, like I mentioned, Davies and Barkley in the back row, that front row. They're grizzled. They won't be afraid, not just travelling to Dublin, but travelling anywhere. When you become an international player and you perform on that stage, you're going to big arenas. Twickenham, a lot of these guys nearly should have beaten England probably in Twickenham.
Yeah.
You think Hadley Parks and Scott Williams in the centre. Nasewa, Ringrose, they'll fancy their chances to match and impose themselves there.
The history of rugby is full of people having a bad game in the Six Nations and then finding redemption. So, I don't think Patchell is this kind of this wiener that we saw at Twickenham who's going to choke.
No, he's a very good player, and they've shown that this year. They beat Toulon in the pool stages. The quarter-final result against La Rochelle, it was a demolition job, and they're not that brittle. Sometimes you think before maybe there's a bit of build 10-15 phases and someone will give up.
Not going to happen.
They defended like their lives depended on it against a big, powerful La Rochelle side, so they're a good side. But Leo Cullen will know that, and so will Stuart Lancaster.
Yeah. No, they've been talking about it all right in the build-up to this game quite a bit. So revenge is in the air, hopefully, on Saturday from a Leinster perspective. And as I said, that game live for you on Off the Ball on Saturday afternoon on Newstop.